52% of four-year college graduates are underemployed a year after finishing their degree. That number comes from a 2024 analysis of more than 60 million actual career histories. Not a survey, not a poll, not a think piece. 60 million career profiles tracked from graduation through the first decade of work. And the result was this. More than half landed in jobs that don't require the degree they just spent 4 years earning. If you're in that group right now, working, but not in anything that resembles what the degree was supposed to open, there are two things worth understanding immediately. The first is that what happened to you has a name, a mechanism, and a documented pattern. The second is that there is a specific window in which this is most fixable, and most people have no idea that window exists until they're already past the easy part of it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly where you are in that window, and you'll know the first move. Let's be precise about this. Start with the definition, because the word gets used loosely, and the loose version is less useful. Underemployment, as labor economists measure it, is not a job you don't like. It's not a job below your potential. It's specifically this, a job that does not typically require a college degree, held by someone who has one. That's the technical line. A graduate working in marketing at a mid-sized company, college-level job. A graduate working as a shift supervisor at a coffee chain, underemployed by definition. A graduate working in data entry at an insurance firm, underemployed. A graduate doing administrative coordination at a nonprofit, almost certainly underemployed, depending on the role structure. The reason the definition matters is because of what it reveals about the earnings math. Here's the number that almost no one gets shown before they sign enrollment paperwork. A recent graduate in a college-level job, one that actually requires the degree, earns roughly 88% more than a high school graduate who never attended. That's the premium, that's what the investment is supposed to buy. A recent graduate who is underemployed earns roughly 25% more than that same high school graduate. 25%, not 88, 25, which means the underemployed graduate spent 4 years and a significant amount of money to earn a premium that is a fraction of what the credential was supposed to deliver. The math was never hidden. Nobody just showed it to you. And here's what makes it harder. The people who sold you the credential had every incentive to show you the 88% figure. They had no incentive to show you the 52%. So if you're sitting with a degree in a job that feels misaligned, you are not making a bad decision with good information. You are making a decision with incomplete information. That distinction matters, not because it makes the situation easier, but because it changes what the problem actually is. The problem is not that you failed to convert the credential. The problem is that the conversion rate was never disclosed. That's a solvable problem. Now here's what the data shows about what happens next. And this is the part that almost no one talks about. Underemployment is not a temporary inconvenience for most people who experience it. It compounds. Here's the specific number from the same analysis of 60 million career profiles. Of the graduates who were underemployed in their first job after college, 73% were still underemployed a decade later. Not a few years, a decade. And the researchers who produced this data used a specific word for it: scarring. The idea is this. The first job is not a neutral starting point from which you build. It's a track. The resume you build in year 1 and year 2 reflects the work you did in year 1 and year 2. The skills you develop or don't in that first role are the skills that either qualify you for the next role or quietly disqualify you. The professional network you build, the competencies you demonstrate, the proof of capability that accumulates in your history, all of it starts at that first job. And if that first job is not building toward anything, the gap between where you are and where you were supposed to be gets harder to close with every passing year. Now here's the inversion that makes this even more important to understand. For the graduates who did land a college-level first job, 79% of them were still in college-level work 5 years later. The track runs both ways. A strong first placement compounds upward almost as reliably as a weak one compounds downward, which means the single highest stakes career decision most graduates make is not which graduate school to consider, not which city to move to, it's what they accept for their first job. Most people were never told that. The conversation around first jobs tends to be just get experience or something is better than nothing. And in a vacuum, that's not wrong, but it ignores the mechanism completely. Something is better than nothing, unless that something is setting a track that the data says you will follow for the next 10 years. So if you're 2, 3, 4 years past graduation, and still in a role that has nothing to do with what you studied or what you wanted, the question is not, should I feel bad about this? The question is, what interrupts the mechanism? Here's the sequence. The same research that identified the scarring effect also tracked the graduates who broke it, who escaped underemployment after starting there, who changed tracks. And three factors kept appearing in the profiles of people who successfully moved. The first is direction specificity. Not, I want a better job. That's a feeling, not a direction. Specifically, a named role in a named field with a realistic picture of what that role requires. The graduates who escaped underemployment were not the ones who kept applying broadly. They were the ones who identified a specific target and built toward it deliberately. The second factor is demonstrable proof of capability. Here's where the research connects to something that's happening right now in the labor market. The employers who are actively moving away from degree requirements, and there are now more than 700 large employers who have formally removed them, are not doing it as a PR move. They're doing it because their internal data showed that portfolio candidates were performing comparably to or better than credentialed candidates in actual work. What that means for the underemployed graduate is this: the degree did not disqualify you. The absence of demonstrated capability in a specific domain is what's limiting access. Those are different problems. One is permanent. The other is buildable. The credential was never the point. The proof of capability was. And the proof of capability, unlike the credential, does not require 4 more years and another 6 figures of debt to produce. The third factor is timeline compression. The graduates who changed tracks did not wait until they had a perfect plan. They moved with a specific direction and a 90-day proof of work. Not a 5-year vision. 90 days. That's a project. A certification with a portfolio attached to it. A skill demonstrated in a specific context that makes the next application different from the last one. This is the mechanism that breaks the scarring effect. Not willpower, not optimism, not a credential, a specific direction, a piece of demonstrable work, and a 90-day window. That's what the data shows. And the reason most people don't do this is not because they're unwilling, it's because they don't know which direction to build toward. And without that, the 90 days doesn't start. If direction is the missing piece for you right now, there's a resource in the description built for exactly that gap. It's a 15-minute quiz that takes your current situation, your timeline, and your financial reality and maps it to one specific career path with a realistic picture of where it leads. Not a list of options. One direction. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. It's the logical next step after this video, before you invest another hour moving in the wrong direction. Here's what this looks like in practice. Not in theory. Step 1 is a diagnostic, not a decision. Look at your current role and answer 3 specific questions. First, does this role require you to develop any skill that is transferable to the direction you actually want to move? Not, is it fine? Not, do the people seem nice? Is it building anything? Any competency? Any portfolio piece? Any proof of capability that gets you closer to a different track? Second, is your job history, as it currently reads, making the next application harder or easier? If a recruiter in the field you want to move into looked at your last 2 years, would they see someone developing relevant capability, or would they see a gap between what you studied and what you've done? Third, what is the one specific role with a job title in a specific field that you would take if you could get it? Not an industry, not a vibe, a title. If you can answer that third question, the 90-day move becomes concrete. Here's the sequence. Identify the portfolio piece that role typically expects at the entry level. Not what you wish you could show, what that specific role, in that specific field, is looking at in the first 60 seconds of reviewing a candidate. Build that piece. One piece. In the next 90 days. This is not a career pivot in the abstract. This is a targeted proof of capability aimed at one specific door. And here is the objection that comes up at exactly this point. I've tried to change direction before and nothing stuck. That is almost never an effort problem. It is almost always a direction problem. Starting a course without a specific destination is not ambition, it's motion. And motion without direction is what produces the half-finished Coursera certificate and the boot camp that got dropped after week 3. The research on who breaks the scarring effect is consistent on this. The variable is not discipline. The variable is target specificity. When the destination is named, the 90 days has stakes. When the destination is vague, it has none, and everything else wins. So before anything else, the direction. That is the work of this week. Not the course, not the portfolio, not the application. The direction. If you don't have a specific direction yet, the quiz in the description exists for that exact reason. 15 minutes, one path, a realistic picture of where it leads. Link in the description and in the pinned comment. What was the moment you realized your degree wasn't opening the doors you expected? And what did you tell yourself about why? Here's what this video covered, stated plainly. 52% of graduates are underemployed 1 year out. That number is structural, documented, and not a personal verdict on anyone in it. The earnings gap between underemployed and college-level employed graduates is not marginal. It is the difference between 25% and 88% above a high school wage. The scarring mechanism is real. 73% of graduates underemployed in year 1 are still underemployed a decade later. And the 3 factors that break it are direction specificity, demonstrable proof of capability, and a 90-day window of deliberate movement. None of this required more years in a classroom. None of it required another credential. It required accurate information about what the market is actually looking at, which is exactly what you were never given before you signed the enrollment paperwork. You are not past the window. The window is right now, and you now have a more precise picture of what it asks of you than most people in your situation will ever get. The next time someone asks you why you're still figuring this out, why you haven't just accepted the track you're on, you now have a better answer than, I don't know. You have the mechanism, you have the math, you have the 3 factors and a specific first move. The math is on your side. You were right to question it. Keep going.